For over 40 years, the World Affairs Council has been inspiring and educating our community about issues and challenges facing our world. With us now at First Presbyterian Church is a former ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch. Marie, so glad to have you with us.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
I'm going to dive right in and ask you why. Why does Russia feel that they have to invade and take over Ukraine?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that this is where we are in 2022. I think that Vladimir Putin has a view that the Ukrainians are not a distinct people, that Ukraine is not a country, an independent country of its own, distinct from Russia, despite many treaties and agreements with Ukraine that indicates that Russia has agreed that it's a sovereign nation. And, they've been making incursions into Ukraine in 2014, the illegal annexation of Crimea, the war in the east, and then I think they felt, Putin most especially, that the West was distracted and weak, that its military was very, very strong, that the Ukrainian people weren't distinct, and that the Ukrainian military was weak. And so, in February of this year, they decided to make their move, which they thought was going to be a cakewalk. But what we found out is that that was incorrect.
What are your thoughts about Ukraine entering NATO?
I think that is, certainly something that Ukraine wants. I think the most important thing, though, right now, is that, right now, we need to keep on providing military support as well as economic and political support to Ukraine. And I think looking forward, and we're already seeing some of this with, some of the defense packages that are being approved by the president, looking to longer-term supply lines, into the 3 and 4 years. We need to make Ukraine as bulletproof, if you will, as possible to foreign invaders, i.e. Russia.
In your vast experience in world affairs, being ambassador to several other countries, how do you think this is going to end?
Well, I think it's going to end with negotiations, but first and foremost, that's going to be what happens on the ground. So Russia is losing now. Military colleagues tell me that it's going to be very hard for Russia to retake the initiative because they are losing ground, they've been cut off from supply lines, and things just aren't going very well for them. And the Ukrainians, on the other hand, are on the offensive, and when I say on the offensive, they're taking back their own lands that Russia has illegally occupied or annexed. So I think what Ukraine wants to do is to go back to original borders, and then I think Ukraine would be ready to start with peace negotiations. Russia, of course, has an entirely different point of view. So I think that we are going to see battles on the ground for months, probably still, if not years, until it is clearer what the new status quo is going to be territorially.
And finally, Ambassador, it's so wonderful to have you on our island. Why do you think it's important to have events like this and speakers like you coming before these, community members and, enlightening us about what's going on in our world?
I think it is so critical because we live in a democracy. And so while on the one hand, these decisions of, which countries we support and what we're doing in Ukraine are mostly taken in Washington by, both the Congress and, of course, the president himself. Those policies need to be supported by the American people. And in order for that to be the case in a democracy, people need to be informed. And so what I try to do is to make the case that I believe really strongly that supporting Ukraine is the right thing to do, because this is a democracy that was invaded without provocation by a far superior power where, human rights have been violated, borders have been violated, sovereignty has been violated. And this undermines not only Ukraine, of course, but the international order that has kept us, safer, more prosperous, and more free in all the years since 1945. And so it impacts us. So it's a smart thing to do to support Ukraine, but it's also it's the right thing to do to support Ukraine, but it's also the smart thing to do for our national security.
Well, thank you so much for your years of service, and thank you so much for being here with us on Hilton Head Island for the World Affairs Council event. And that's a wrap for this edition of the WHHI Daily News. I'm Robyn Zimmerman. I'd like to thank our guests and our team behind the scenes. And if you missed a part of our newscast, well, guess what? We'll be back in 90 minutes.